people, LP2000 right back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back to Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews on behalf of Summit Kaiju. And I'm your host, the one and the only Leslie P. Chambers. And today we're taking a look at another great X Plus figure release. Yes, yes, yes. And you already know what time it is. You already clicked the title. You already know what we're going to discuss in this video. So you already know that this is going to be a very, very special review involving not one, but this is my most favorite Godzilla design of all time. And today we're taking a look at the X Plus 25 centimeter Godzilla 1964 B-Suit Standard Edition, based off his appearance in the iconic golden era sci-fi Toho Kaiju film, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. And as you can see, I have the beautiful figure here. Yes, 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 in all his glory. And you know, we do things around here. Let's get into the box before we get into the figure. And this is the box. Yes, yes, yes. You know, you've seen these boxes before. Typical Toho Large Monster Series boxes with the red, the white, the window display, and all that good stuff. But there's a couple of things to know about this box. First and foremost, if you go down to the bottom logo here at the bottom, of course you have the Shin Godzilla 65-year logo, you know, whatever. But it also has the title of the figure, you know, of the Godzilla design per se. Godzilla 1964, of course, the Japanese language title of the film. And as you notice here, now I mentioned that, you know, this is the Godzilla 1964 B-Suit. You know what I mean? And of course, that's kind of like an unofficial title that us fans are calling this Godzilla. Because this Godzilla design was used in the previous film in 1964, Mothra vs. Godzilla, and they brought it back in this film, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, 8 months later, and it's slightly modified. Of course, it's the exact same suit from Mothra vs. Godzilla, but there are certain modifications. So because of that, we actually refer to this Godzilla as the B-Suit. Kind of like the 68 Godzilla. You know, it's pretty much the same design as the one that was used in Godzilla versus Ghidorah. But that came out in a different year. But this was like the first time, I think the first and only time where Toho made two monster films within the same year. I don't think that's been done before, and I don't think it has been done since. So the fact that they brought out one great film in Mothra vs. Godzilla earlier that year was awesome. Then they come back with another one, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, in the same year. Man, Toho was a bomb back in the day, you know. I miss those days. But going back to the logo, it doesn't say the 1964 B-Suit, you know. It's just simply Godzilla 1964, because that's basically what it is. Only us fans are calling it, or you know, or categorizing unofficially as the B-Suit. That's basically what it is. And also the other thing to know about this box, like if you look at the back here, it doesn't have the 1954 Godzilla silhouette on the back of the box. You know, I don't know if they started doing that, because I know the last figure that they made in the 25 centimeter scale was Monster X, and that came in the same type of box, you know. So I don't know. I forgot, because I trashed the box like when I first got the figures. I don't know, but I don't know if they're gonna be doing this moving forward without having the 54 logo on the back, which is kind of a shame, honestly, because I think that it's very appropriate to have the 54 logo on the back of the boxes, because it showed where everything came from. Without the 54, we wouldn't have everything that will follow. So I don't know if that's a one-time thing, but I hope not, because it's kind of been like a staple when it comes to 25 centimeter boxes or the Toho Large Monster series. You know, it's kind of been like a staple. So I hope they have not moved on from that, but only time will tell. But there's only two things to note when it comes to the box. Now, let's get into the figure. Yes, yes, yes. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is the 25 centimeter X Plus Standard Edition of Godzilla 1964, the B-Suit, based off his appearance in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. It just got released in collector's hands the past 2 weeks. Today is August the 3rd. So it started arriving in collector's hands last week and the week before. Last week in July, going into the early week of August. Now, this is the standard version, okay? The RIP version came with two mini versions of Mothra Larva from 1964, as well as Rodan from 1964, but Rodan is in a flying position. Now, the reason why I didn't go for the RIP is because the price was a little bit steep for what they were offering, you know? Now, if you have the RIP, then hey, you got yourself a good grab there, but for me, it wasn't really appealing to me, at least price-wise. And you know me, I'm huge into setups, right? I'm huge into putting figures together to recreate recreate accurate setups, or at least as accurate as I possibly can, to make these setups, you know. And the problem with the Rick version of the 64B suit, like I said, Rodan and Mothra are not in scale, especially with Godzilla and especially with King Ghidorah. The only way I can see it working is like if you put Godzilla and King Ghidorah opposing each other like in the frame, but yet you put Mothra like in the foreground where she doesn't come off too small, and if you put Rodan in the back like he's flying in from a distance, like you saw in my first shot of this video, you know, something like that, you know. But aside from that, like I said, the Rick wasn't really appealing me. You think I would go for the Rick, considering I'm a huge fan of both Rodan and Mothra, you know, from this year. But I decided to save a little money, and actually I ended up getting me another 64 25 centimeter Rodan from G-Fest. If you saw my last video in my G-Fest experience, I talk about why I got that figure, and I'll just go over a small recap here. The reason why I went for the Rodan 64, because I already got one, you know. But like I said, I'm huge into setups, and I want a completed setup of both Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster as well as Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. And of course, Rodan is an integral part of both of those setups, you know what I mean? So I figured, you know, since I'm going to use a Rodan 64 for one setup, it'll be better for me to get another one, an in-scale Rodan, to go with another setup. And that's one of the other reasons why I didn't go for the Rick of this figure. Now, mind you, like I said, if you got the Rick, then hey, that's good for you. But for me, considering the circumstances that were upon me, that's why I went for the standard. And this is such a nice piece. Now, the first time we ever saw pictures of this piece was at the Winter Wonder Festival show back in February in Japan earlier this year. Now, of course, that show was more noteworthy because of the unveiling of the upcoming X Plus Gigantic series Godzilla 2019, based off his appearance in the most recent Godzilla film, Godzilla King of the Monsters. Of course, they showcased the new Godzilla 2000 25 centimeter that just got released around a month ago or whatever. They showed pictures of an upcoming Orga. They showed pictures of the already released Kaiju 2002. And they also showed a display card of this Godzilla. You know, it was a display card with a silhouette of Godzilla. It was a black and white card, or black and white display, I should say. And honestly, it was kind of like lost in the shuffle because everybody was talking about the Gigantic and the new Godzilla 2000 and the Orga and a lot of other things from the show. So a lot of folks were kind of like, I won't say sleeping on this release, but people, I guess, kind of like forgot about it. You know what I mean? Even I'm not ashamed to admit that, because my mind has been preoccupied with other things. It was great to see this at the show and to know that it was coming, but I kind of forgot about it, honestly. So the fact that it showed up just now is a pleasant surprise, and this figure has really pleasantly surprised me. You know what I mean? And honestly, this figure of Godzilla was made in response to the X Plus 25 centimeter 64 King Ghidorah that just got dropped in May. And this is like the second time where this has happened, where they have made a 25 centimeter Godzilla to go with a 25 centimeter version of King Ghidorah. The last time this happened was back in 2017, I believe, when they made Ghidorah from Final Wars 25 centimeter scale. And that came out, I want to say, like in May of that year. Then, like the following month in June, they brought forth a 25 centimeter Godzilla 2004 from Final Wars to coincide with the release of Ghidorah. So basically, we're seeing history repeat itself, you know, with the release of King Ghidorah in 1964, and they want to bring forth a Godzilla from that same film, you know. Of course, you can use the original 1964 Godzilla X Plus figure that they have made. And of course, once again, it's the same suit design from Ghidorah 3-Headed Monster, but there's enough of a difference here with this figure where, you know, it warrants an investment, in my opinion. Especially if you're huge into setups, you know what I mean? Especially if you OCD, if you want the exact same monster from the exact same film to create the exact same setup, then you basically need this guy. And honestly, this was the last remaining piece from this film that needed to be made to really complete the setup. You know, now arguably that they kind of needed a Mothra larva in a way. The only Mothra larvae that they have made, as far as like from this year, that they made two that came with the 25 centimeter 64 Godzilla from Mothra vs. Godzilla, and they made one that came with the 25 centimeter Rodan 1964 as a Rick. But the problem with those larvas, or larvae I should say, is that they're not really in scale. You know, they're not perfectly in scale. They okay. I mean, they provide nice stand-ins, um, but they're not really in scale. The only one that's in scale, in my opinion, is the 1968 Martha larva that came with the Destroy All Monsters Volume 1 setup between the Martha larva and Manda. So you can actually use that as a stand-in for the Martha larva from 1964, because they look virtually the same, really. And I don't see X Plus really going out their way to make a standard release of a 25 centimeter Martha larva from 1964. So between those options, you have options to create the setup. But in my opinion, the 68 larva is like the one that you will need really to perfectly complete the setup, and you'll see that in size comparisons later on. But aside from that, that's the backstory with me getting this figure. Once again, this is a pleasant surprise. Such an awesome release. Once again, in a year where we have seen great releases from X Plus, from Ebra, the Gigantic 89, the Death for Real of the 64 and 98, the Sakai 2002, Monster X, Godzilla 2000. Of course, we got stuff that's coming that's awesome. The Sakai 95, Baragon, the Gigantic 2019. You know, the new Kong is coming. Lots of stuff is coming, you know. And in a year, like I said, we have seen great things. Great products, great releases from X Plus. They just keep doing the darn thing. You know what I mean? So once again, I am so happy with this release. Now I have to say this. I have to say, when pictures started popping up of this guy, for people that started getting theirs early within the last 2 weeks, some people, I have to admit, some people pictures made the figure not look so good. You know, the problem with this, or at least the problem with the pictures, like it showed Godzilla, his mouth here is a little bit too wide. Like my good friend David Abdopko, he had one. He got one, excuse me, and he felt that the jaw on his bottom jaw was like a little bit too wide, where it kind of looked awkward. You know what I mean? But since David is a brilliant sculptor and artist, he was able to modify his and close it just a little bit more to his liking to give it a better look. And unfortunately, sometimes that's what you have to do to these figures. You know, it's not like you can pack them up and send them back to Japan, you know, whatever. So he's able to do that because he's a brilliant sculptor and artist, like I said. But I did find out that if you actually heat up the vinyl, like you blow dry Godzilla's mouth, both the lower and upper jaws, and then just like, you know, close the mouth, and then maybe put like some tape around it, or like a hair tie or hair bow, whatever, then freeze it for like maybe a couple hours. Now, it won't completely shut the jaws, but it'll at least close the mouth a little bit more, just in case you don't like that wide open mouth look of this Godzilla. But for me, I enjoy it. I think it's perfect. It's the perfect representation of the 64B suit at a point where Godzilla started becoming less sinister and more campy and more goofy. But that's the charm of the Showa series. You know what I mean? That is the charm of the Showa series. And once again, X Plus has basically replicated that in this sculpt of the 64B Godzilla. And, you know, do things around here. Let's get up close and personal with this guy, and I'll provide some inserts as we go along here. Really simplistic, you know. Godzilla tree bark light skin, you know, has some dirty highlights all over the body here, all over his skin. You know, they have done a really terrific job with what they're doing with their sculpts as of late. You know, between this one, the 2000, the 65 that came out last year. I don't know what's going on with them or with X Plus. I don't know if they contracted with new sculptors or whatever, but they have really stepped their game up, especially when it comes to the 25s. This guy is really no exception. Like I said, it has dirty highlights all over the body. The dorsal plates are popping. You know, it has a more of a dirty look. Now, mind you, this suit, or at least the color of the suit, the way X Plus has applied the color on this suit, is really a reflection of what the suit looked like in Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. Because once again, like I said, since this is a modified Mothra vs. Godzilla suit, if you watch both films, you can tell there's a difference in the color scheme in the suits. You know, where the original Mothra vs. Godzilla 1964 suit had more of a lighter color in a way. It wasn't too dirty, you know, especially when it comes to the dorsal plates. But in this movie, since this movie was 8 months removed from Mothra vs. Godzilla, of course it went through some wear and tear in Mothra vs. Godzilla. But you know, the span of time between both movies and the fact that Godzilla kind of went through more fighting and more turmoil and more wear and tear did hit the suit a lot. It's really reflective, you know, with the paint scheme here, where it has a more of a dirty look, and the dorsal plates really reflect that as well. Now, the dorsal plates, and I've heard some criticisms about that, saying that the dorsal plates appear a little bit too small. Now, the reason why, in my opinion, they look too small, in my opinion, I don't think they're too small. I think they're sculpted perfectly. But I think the reason why people may believe or under the assumption that these are too small, it's because Godzilla is standing upright. You know, as you can see here in his pose and his posture here, Godzilla is more upright, where he's either about to oppose Rodan or King Ghidorah, or at least something that's bigger or taller than him. So when you put that in this sculpt where he's rearing his head and his body upwards, of course the dorsal plates are not going to be as pronounced as he would be if he's like lunging forward, where the dorsal plates will pop out, where they would give off more size. So in essence, they needed to be this size in this posture of Godzilla. If not, if they would have been bigger, it would be kind of out of place. It would kind of have that unnatural look, you know. So I think the way the dorsal plates are sized up here on this particular figure of Godzilla is reflective of Godzilla's pose and his posture, and I think it's perfect. Once again, it's the same dorsal plate, same shape, same whatever of the original Mothra vs. Godzilla 1964 suit. And once again, this is such an awesome representation. You know, dorsal plates, like I said, dirty, and they have done a great job with this, you know, with the paint scheme or whatever. And once again, the attention to detail that X Plus provide these figures are so amazing. We all know this, you know, but every now and then they will even go a step further with their realism of the figures, because they go for a man in a suit realism versus monster realism, if that makes sense. Of course, there are some exceptions, like the gigantic GMK, he stylized, you know, whatever. That wasn't really a real suit. Or the gigantic Godzilla 2000, that was a maquette. It wasn't really a real suit. But there are times, like I said, where they will go for suit realism and go the extra mile with that suit realism. Like they'll have like simulated punctured holes in like the sculpts of these figures. But with this figure, there is a line in the middle of Godzilla's dorsal plates. It's like a little slit here. And that is basically a representation of where Haruo Nakajima, the guy who played Godzilla in this film, as well as countless other Godzilla films in the Showa period, that's where he would get in and out of the suit. The last time I saw a figure that did that, that I can recall, is the 1971 Godzilla, the 25cm version, you know. And once again, the realism that provides is awesome. And also a fun fact, this was actually the first time, I'm speaking on, you know, how Nakajima would get in and out of the suit. Cause back in 1964, I guess to promote the film, I do recall seeing footage of Nakajima in a Godzilla suit trashing a miniature city. And it was like a stadium show, or it was like a show like held in a parking lot where children and guests would come in and see Nakajima do that. Now, mind you, before that point, Toho didn't acknowledge that Godzilla was a guy in a suit, even though it's kind of apparent when you watch the films, actually. But this was actually the first time by them doing shows like this and seeing Nakajima in a Godzilla suit trashing a miniature city or a tourist city. That was actually Toho coming out and admitting, yes, Godzilla is really a guy in a suit. You know, it's not a giant prop, or, you know, it's not really a real life dinosaur or a monster or whatever. So it's very noteworthy of that. So the fact that they, like I said, with X Plus providing that little slit right here in the middle of Godzilla's dorsal plates, once again offers more of that suit realism. Just the attention to detail that is one of the main reasons why we love X Plus so much. The toes are dirty bone white, as well as his claws here, you know, whatever. Tail is a little bit long, you know. Just the overall texture and overall sculpture of this figure is amazing. It really is amazing. The detail in the mouth, man, the mouth is awesome. The teeth is individually sculpted. The tongue and the inside of the mouth is painted really well. The only trade-off about that is, like, when you look at this Godzilla from the front, like I said earlier, you know, you got the Showa series. The Showa series is known for campy, goofiness, whatever. Once again, that's the charm of the Showa series, and it has goofiness written all over it when you look at this Godzilla head on. You know, and in a way, it kind of comes off as Mighty Peking Man. If you've seen Mighty Peking Man, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I don't mean that as a knock. I'm just saying that, you know, it's part of the charm of the Showa series, especially when you look at this Godzilla. Especially when, once you realize how he looked the first time in Marvel vs. Godzilla, where he looked evil, sinister, heinous, just an evil-looking, scary-looking Godzilla in a way. Then he goes from that to this, you know, more of a campy, goofy, you know, different type of Godzilla. You know, to signify basically in this film, this was Godzilla's turn from villain to hero, so his look had to reflect that. Oh, speaking of look, later on I will have a slideshow where I show the differences between both the 1964 25cm Godzilla and this 1964 B suit of Godzilla, so you can see the differences between the two suits. Like I mentioned, it's just like the original 64 suit, but it's modified in certain areas, and you'll see that in the slideshow later on. But once again, the teeth, the individual sculpted teeth, the color of the mouth, the eyes, just the whole overall look of Godzilla, the paint scheme, the size of the dorsal plates, the sculpture of the dorsal plates, just the overall package really is a 10 out of 10. They have done a great job. And once again, I got this guy maybe 2 or 3 days ago. And me getting this figure, it's like I don't see a bad angle with this figure. You know, sometimes, you know, some figures have bad angles when you want to take pictures of it or shoot video of it. But it's like this guy, for me, at least in my opinion, I don't see a bad angle. I know people are going to say, yeah, because you're a fanboy of the 64, you're going to say that. But honestly, I don't really see a bad angle. And that's a testament to how great S Plus has made this figure, you know. Once again, like I said, it's very simplistic with this review, or at least the detail on this guy. The detail is awesome. It's there. It really is there. Once again, if you're not into create accurate setups, then the original 25cm 64 Godzilla will do you. But this guy, in my opinion, is necessary for the Ghidorah, the three-headed monster setup, which you'll see later on. But aside from that, sculpt, paint job, the color of the dorsal plates, the color in his mouth, the teeth, the eyes, just an amazing piece. You know what I mean? And I hope X Plus is not done with the 64B suit. If I can make a suggestion, G, if you're out there watching, hopefully you are. But trust me, I think a favorite sculpt design of the Monster Maker 28 Godzilla 1964B suit would be a good idea. All right, just want to float that out there. Hopefully you can make that happen, because I've seen a lot of folks really become happy with this release. And I think a Monster Maker 28 version in the favorite sculptors line will make folks even happier, you know. So that's pretty much it with the up close and personal detail with this guy. Once again, such an amazing piece, in my opinion. The perfect representation of the Godzilla 64B suit from Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. You cannot go wrong with this figure. At the time of recording, like I said, he just got released. If you really want one, I think Hobby Search still may have a couple available on their site. Of course, it's the standard version. Now, if you want the rig, you may have to do a little bit more legwork to get the rig. But I highly suggest, if you're a fan of this Godzilla sculpt, or at least this design, if you're into the setup of Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, trust me, you need to get this figure, and the time is now. Like I said, he just got into collectors' hands recently in the past couple weeks. And you know, as time goes on, he's going to be even more scarce, and he's going to be even more up there in price. Because this guy to my door was like maybe $150 shipped. And you know, within a month, probably even less than that, he's going to be twice as much. So really, if you want one now, please do what you need to do to get your hands on this one right now. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Now, let's do a couple size comparisons, and then we'll wrap up this review with my thoughts of Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, especially Godzilla's role in the film. So let's go with the first size comparison right now. Okay, folks, this is the first size comparison, yes, and alongside the 1964 25cm Godzilla B-Suit edition, yes, standard edition, I should say. To his left, I have the most recently released 25cm standard of Godzilla 2000, and of course, arguably the figure of the year that came out last year in November, the 25cm 1965 Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. And you're probably wondering, why did I put these three together? Now, if you were listening earlier as I was talking about the figure in Up Close and Personal, I mentioned the 2000 and the 65. as relates to the upgrade, if you will, in the sculpting techniques that X Plus has been doing. Ever since the 65 came out late last year, and that figure is amazing. You know what I mean? That figure is awesome. It's like then they came out with the 2000, you know, a couple months ago or last month or whatever, and now we have the 64B. I don't know if X Plus is contracted with new talent or new people or whatever, but there is a difference with these products, and it's a difference for the better. Nothing against like the older versions of the 25 centimeter figures, you know, like maybe the 66 or the 67. Those in particular, they look great, but there was something off about those figures. There was something off about those, like in particular, you know what I mean? Of course, there have been some great other 25 centimeter older school versions of X Plus figures, like the 68 is awesome, the 71 is awesome. You know, the original 64, as I've been talking about for the past 25 minutes, that's awesome. But there have been some misses, you know, hit or misses, you know, for as figures. And the misses have been the 25 centimeter 62. That was kind of questionable. Like I mentioned, the 67, he kind of looks kind of off. Of course, the 75, oh my God, something was wrong with that figure, or something didn't look right about this figure, or that figure, excuse me. But these three are an example. Ever since last year, ever since the release of the 65, X Plus has been stepping their game up, you know, and been stepping their game up for the better, you know. Like I said, I don't know if they're contracting with new people or if they have a new network of sculptors or painters or builders or artists to really make these figures. But the difference is there. The difference is really, 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 really there. You know, it's unfortunate that, you know, the 1954 25 centimeter that came out before the 65 last year, to me, it didn't really look that well. But start with the 65, and then they brought forth, you know, the 2000. And of course, I also want to count in Monster X, and now the 64B. It's just the detail is there. The difference in detail is there, and it just makes me hopefully, you know, happy and excited of what we're going to be getting for our 25 centimeter or just overall figures from X Plus in general. Because once again, these figures are living proof that they have stepped their game up. Man, this is awesome. Like, once again, 65, the 64B, especially the 2000. Oh my God, they have done a great job. And all I can say is X Plus, keep up the great work, because y'all have done a phenomenal job in stepping your game up, and it really is noticeable. All right, this is the first size comparison. As I mentioned earlier, there will be a slideshow where I showcase the differences between the 64B suit X Plus figure that you see here, as well as the original 25 centimeter 64 Godzilla. You'll see that in the slideshow. But before we get to that, the reason that this figure is here, the reason why I'm so happy that this figure is here is of course because it completes the setup to one of my most favorite Godzilla films of all time, in Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, with Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, and of course King Ghidorah. So let's see that size comparison right now. Yes, 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 yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you, yes, 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 the perfect setup to the 1964 Kaiju Melee classic film. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, with, of course, the S Plus 25 centimeter Godzilla 1964B suit standard edition. Of course, you have the man of the hour in the middle, the S Plus 25 centimeter King Ghidorah 1964, the S Plus 25 centimeter standard edition of Rodan 1964, and of course, like I mentioned earlier, this is the 1968 25 centimeter Mothra larva. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, the Mothra larva looks exactly how he or she looked in 1964, so this will provide the perfect stand-in for this epic setup. Man, this looks so awesome together. This is a collecting milestone for me, because you know me, I'm into setups. I'm into creating setups, you know, with these figures. And like I mentioned earlier, the original 25 centimeter 64 Godzilla looked great, you know, with this setup here. But this makes it absolutely perfect. And as you can see here, Godzilla scales well perfectly with all of the monsters. And there was another criticism that I've seen people talk about this figure when pictures started popping up of this guy online, that he was too small, he didn't look size comparable to King Ghidorah and other monsters. But as you can see, this is exactly how it was in the film. Ghidorah was bigger than Godzilla and Rodan. You know what I mean? It was this size in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, so Godzilla actually pairs perfectly. He pairs perfectly, especially with Rodan and especially with King Ghidorah. And as I mentioned earlier with the Martha Larva, like I said, a couple mini ones came with the Rick version of the 25 centimeters 64 Godzilla. A mini one came with Rodan, you know. But like I mentioned before, and also the Rick version of the 64B, Martha Larva came with that. But in my opinion, those Martha Larva or larvae are not really perfect when it comes to scaling if you want to create the perfect setup. That's just my opinion. The one that does come in scale and the one that does look perfectly is this one right here, the 68 version. But like I said, the 68 version of Martha Larva looks exactly how Martha looked in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. So this is the perfect setup. This is the perfect larva. This is the perfect Godzilla. This is the perfect Rodan. And this is the perfect King Ghidorah. Once again, thank you X Plus for making this happen. Thank you so much for making King Ghidorah. Thank you so much for feeling the need to create the 64B Godzilla. You know, on behalf of a lot of people that love setups and especially love this movie and especially love this version of Godzilla, thank you so much for making this happen. This is so awesome. Alright, that's it with the size comparisons, you know, and like I mentioned earlier, we're going to go into the slideshow between the two 64s that X Plus has done, and you'll see the differences between the two. Then after that's done, we'll wrap up this review with my thoughts of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. So before that happens, let's go into the 64 comparison slideshow, and let's go to that comparison right now. Okay, folks, I'm back with my final thoughts of the X Plus 25 centimeter standard edition of the Godzilla 1964 B suit. Yes. Once again, a great figure. Yes, X Plus has done a phenomenal job with this guy, with the paint job, the sculpt, you know, whatever. Like I said, the differences in the sculpture of these new figures versus the old 25 centimeter figures is so apparent, and it's apparent for the better. So yes, X Plus has done a phenomenal job with this guy. Please go after this guy. You will not be disappointed. Now, let's go into my thoughts of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Yes. As you already know, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster is one of my most favorite Godzilla films. Actually, both King Ghidorah films from 64 and 65 are on my favorite top 10 list of Godzilla films. Of course, Monster Zero falls in the latter half. It's like number 8. Or number 9 or whatever, where Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster is more upwards. You know, it's in the upper tier, like at number 4. And once again, this is such an amazing film. It's such an awesome film, you know. And I think the charm of this film is really the reason why I love this film so much. Now, with these early Godzilla films, of course, I think every Godzilla film is noteworthy and important on a certain level, right? Now, when it comes to the early Godzilla films, now, the original Godzilla film is, of course, noteworthy and important for introducing Godzilla to the world. You know what I mean? You know, they unleashed Godzilla upon the world, and we got a great franchise out of it. The next film, Godzilla Raised Again, it was the first time we saw a Kaiju versus Kaiju monster battle in the film. So that's very noteworthy of that, because that has been pretty much a staple throughout the majority of the Godzilla film series anyway. You know, monster versus monster. King Kong versus Godzilla, of course, that film to me, in my opinion, is more noteworthy. Is the fact that it established Godzilla as a star. Now, of course, you know, you can argue that the original did, but I think King Kong vs. Godzilla had a lot more to do with the success of Godzilla being looked upon as a bankable star. You know, with King Kong vs. Godzilla, I think Toho felt like, okay, we got something on our hands here. We got a cash cow on our hands. So I think King Kong vs. Godzilla is very noteworthy of that, where it established Godzilla as a star. Mothra vs. Godzilla, in my opinion, is very noteworthy and important for reestablishing Godzilla as a villain, as a really nasty, hateful villain, you know? I think Mothra vs. Godzilla is very noteworthy and important for that. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, in my opinion, is really just a culmination of a lot of things that would shape the Showa series to what it is. You know, it's very noteworthy of a lot of things. It's very important for a lot of things. You know, you have the inclusion of Rodan for the first time into the Godzilla universe. You know, they bring back Mothra from the previous film, establishing her as a monster in this universe. Of course, you have the introduction of King Ghidorah, the first ever space monster, which would then open the doors for other space monsters to follow, like Gigan, Mechagodzilla. I guess you can throw Hedra in there, as well as the introduction of alien races that would come in and try to take over the world and blah, blah, blah. And of course, this film is also noteworthy of shifting Godzilla from a villain to a hero. You know, you have all these different things that really jumpstart the Showa series, or at least shape the Showa series as we know it. Now, I think the main charm of this film is the fact that this really is a building of the universe of the Showa series. I think with this film, with so many opportunities that it had in this film, and the way it jumped off so many different things, like I said, with the inclusion of Rodan, the introduction of King Ghidorah, you know, aliens, all that stuff, it really started with this movie. You know, you look at what film really shaped the Showa universe to what it is today. You know, we have all these different things, you know, come about in the Showa series with aliens, other monsters, you know, whatever. This film, in my opinion, really had a lot to do with shaping the universe of the Showa series, which then brought the Heisei series and the Millennium series and all the other films that will follow. Really, without this film, I think, you know, it'd be kind of hard to argue if Godzilla would have the illustrious universe that he has, if not for this film. Now, I want to go into further that there are a few moments in this film that's my favorite. Of course, once again, this is one of my most favorite Godzilla films, so there are a lot of moments in this film that are my favorites. One that stick out to me the most, I'm going to give you 5 of them. The 5 moments that stick out to me the most, maybe not my favorite, but the one that stick out to me the most are these moments right here. Of course, when Godzilla appears, that really is an amazing scene, honestly, and all he does is just really rises up out of the water. But the way they're built to that scene, you know, when they show, you know, the ocean liner in the ocean, and then you see the whales coming out of the ocean, and they're like swimming away from something scared them to death, it's causing them to flee, and then you have Godzilla rise up out of the water, and then he lets out his iconic roar, then he basically destroys the ocean liner. Now, this is something that I really want to talk about for a few seconds. This is actually one of the rare occasions where I actually enjoy the American version of a particular kaiju film versus the Japanese version. Now, more often than not, I will go for the Japanese version, especially the Heisei series, especially the Millennium series. Oh my God, the dubs on those films are awful. Oh my God, it makes you want to just tear your hair out, or at least stick a screwdriver in your ear, because they're just so awful. So more often than not, I would go for the dubs, for the subtitled version, the English subtitled version, for the Heisei series and for the Millennium series. But there are a few occasions where I feel the Americanization of these films, or certain films, is done better. Godzilla 2000 is one of them. I think the American version of Godzilla 2000 is better. King Kong vs. Godzilla. Of course, some folks may not really agree with that, but again, this is from my perspective. I like the American version better of King Kong vs. Godzilla than the Japanese version. And I have to say the same for Ghidorah the three-headed monster. And because of that scene with Godzilla rises up out of the water, in the Japanese version, the ocean liner comes in, the whales flee, Godzilla rises up, destroy the ocean liner, then that's it. In the American version, they actually splice in footage of Rodan appearing when Godzilla appears to kind of suggest that Rodan and Godzilla appear at the same time, really as a response to each other and kind of in response to the King Ghidorah egg that landed in Japan. So I like how in that particular version, in the American version, they made that scene a little bit better with the inclusion of Rodan when Godzilla rises up out of water. So that's one of my most favorite moments. Number two, I love the moment where Godzilla and Rodan fight. And really, it's a situation where they're not really trying to kill each other. They're trying to really out-monster each other. They're trying to one-up each other, you know. But it made for a fun film. It kind of whet our appetites for the final battle, you know, which is one of the reasons why I love this film so much. They gave us so much great monster action. The build-up to the monster action was really, really well done. And then once we got there, it really paid off. And seeing Godzilla and Rodan fight each other, or at least trying to one-up each other, was really, 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 really fun. The fact that Rodan really got up in Godzilla's face and really was the one antagonizing him more than the other way around, I really found that to be intriguing. That's why, in my opinion, this is the best version of Rodan. In my opinion, this is the best movie involving Rodan. I'm sure some Rodan 56 purists probably going to hate that. Once again, that's just my opinion. But the way they just kept on fighting each other and throwing rocks at each other and blowing wind gusts at each other, you know, to the point where Mothra had to come in and try and calm them down, was really, really a fun scene, seeing them try to out-monster each other, which made the film even that much better, you know? Which leads into my third favorite point. When Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra had that summit, that conference, that monster summit. Now, I know some folks probably look at this moment and find it to be really, really cheesy, really, really silly. Once again, this is charm of the show with serious people. But for me, I'm actually invested into this scene. You know, that really Mothra, in her current state, even if she were a butterfly, she really can't really take on King Ghidorah at all. King Ghidorah is such a dangerous and deadly opponent in this film that Mothra knows going in she cannot win against King Ghidorah. So she needs Rodan and Godzilla. She needs the muscle of Rodan and Godzilla to fight King Ghidorah. And the fact that she tried to plead with them, to try to get them to cooperate, you know, really, really is an amazing scene. And it also shows at the same time that Godzilla and Rodan were not willing to put aside their differences at first to fight on the side of humanity. And both of them have valid reasons why they won't do it. And of course, if you watch the Japanese version or the English version, they pretty much tell the same story. That Godzilla and Rodan feel that humanity has done everything they could to try and kill them, so why should they try to help them? You know what I mean? But then that shows the bravery of Mothra, kind of like what we saw in Mothra vs. Godzilla, where Mothra agrees to fight Godzilla knowing that she's dying. We see the same type of bravery here when Mothra tries to convince Godzilla and Rodan and they're not trying to hear of it. Mothra's like, forget it, I do it myself, I don't need y'all, you know, whatever. And Godzilla and Rodan just turn slowly as they watch Mothra just crawl by on her way to fight King Ghidorah. And Godzilla like takes his eyes and go like, you know what I'm saying? Once again, gotta let the show a series. But then after seeing Mothra get her butt handed to her by King Ghidorah, that's when Godzilla and Rodan come into the fray. Once again, that summit, even though, like I said, it's silly, there is some validation as to why Rodan and Godzilla will not be willing to cooperate with each other just to take on something else on behalf of humanity. So you're able to understand from Godzilla and Rodan's viewpoint, which kind of humanized them in a way, but still was an effective scene that, in my opinion, was needed for this movie and what was needed to eventually build up the opposition to fight King Ghidorah, which leads into my other point. One of my other favorite moments is really, it doesn't really involve Godzilla and Rodan, it's really, Godzilla and Mothra. It involves King Ghidorah and Rodan. When King Ghidorah fights Godzilla one-on-one and King Ghidorah overwhelms Godzilla, Rodan attacks King Ghidorah from the air and King Ghidorah gives chase to Rodan. Then as they're flying, Rodan does a sweet move. He basically does like a 380, or a 360, and just rams head first into King Ghidorah in midair, and they both come crashing down. For some reason, I always mark out when I see that moment. I'm like, see, that's the Rodan I love. See, that shades of the 56 Rodan. Swift, deadly, just ready just to tear into an opponent. You know, for some reason, I just love that moment. It's a brief moment, mind you, because after that, King Ghidorah corners Rodan until Mothra and Godzilla show up. But when that happens, when Rodan just turns midair and go boom, I just love that moment. You know, one of my favorite moments. And my last one of my last favorite moments I want to cover in this video is when Godzilla and Rodan and Mothra finally realize that they have to attack at the same time to bring down King Ghidorah. Because in the fight up until that point, Godzilla tries to take on King Ghidorah one-on-one, he's unsuccessful. Rodan tries to fight King Ghidorah one-on-one, he's unsuccessful. Of course, Mothra tries to do it, but she's unsuccessful. Now, each monster, Rodan, Godzilla, and Mothra, have unique individual abilities. But they don't mean much when they fight King Ghidorah one-on-one. So it takes Godzilla taking on King Ghidorah head-on, Rodan attacking from the sky, Mothra trying to hold down King Ghidorah's tails, and they all attack in unison at the same time to bring King Ghidorah down. And for the most part, it does work, but at least that is why this is my favorite version of King Ghidorah. Wild, uncontrollable, can't be tamed, deadly, destructive, dangerous. And even when they at first gang up on King Ghidorah, he mostly shakes them off. But between the muscle between Godzilla and Rodan, and of course Mothra doing what she did at the end by tangling up King Ghidorah's heads, it took the collective effort of Rodan, Mothra, and Godzilla to finally bring King Ghidorah down. And that made up for one of the best fight scenes and one of my most favorite moments of this film. So yes, once again, so many great moments of this film. But I think that aside from the fact that it's very entertaining, you know, very Showa-esque, and it will shape what the Showa series will become later on. Once again, I think it's very, very important for it building the Showa universe and making it fun as it is today, you know. So once again, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, one of the best Godzilla films out there of all time, is number 4 on my list. And when it comes to figures, once again, all these great figures comprise this great, great setup, all done by X+, all perfect representations of the kaiju in the film. Once again, this is a testament on how great X+ is. Trust me when I say that. Alright, so that pretty much concludes my review of the X+ 25cm Godzilla 1964 B-Suit Standard Edition, based off his iconic appearance in the iconic 1964 film, Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. You have any questions, holler me down in the comment section. Hit me on Facebook, be a Leslie P. Chambers, but definitely go from there. Yes, once again, X+, kudos to you. I give you a round of applause. Thank you for making this happen. Thank you for giving us the final and probably one of the most important pieces to this equation by giving us the 64 Godzilla B-Suit 25cm figure. You have done a phenomenal job with this guy, from the paint job, the sculpt. Like I mentioned, your trend in the sculpts of these figures with the 65, then 2000, then Monster X, and of course King Ghidorah, he's a 25cm figure too. Y'all have done a phenomenal job of what you've been doing. Not only 25, but just with everything that you have put out thus far. I don't recall hearing about a bad release that you have done recently. You know, of course, not everybody's going to be happy with every single figure, but for me, honestly, I can tell you I'm thoroughly happy with everything that I've gotten from y'all for at least 2 years straight. You know what I mean? And this 64 B-Suit, as well as King Ghidorah, Rodan, and all that, is a testament as to why I'm an avid supporter. I'm a loyal supporter. I'm a faithful X+ supporter, and I will continue to be one just as long as y'all make quality products like this, and I'm sure you will. So once again, folks, if you want this figure, get your hands on this figure. Try Mandarake, try eBay, try Hobby Search. Like I said, there's a couple still up on there. When I went online a couple days ago, there's still a couple up there. You know, if you want to read, you got to do a little bit more research. But either way, if you're a fan of this Godzilla sculpt, and if you really want to recreate the perfect setup to Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, please get your hands on this figure, where it's the standard or Ripboard edition of the X+ 25cm Godzilla 1964 B-Suit edition. Once again, lots of stuff is coming here on the channel. I think my next review, I'm going to do the soft vinyl crawling Hedra Ripboard edition. So look for that coming real soon. Also, I'm going to be doing a live stream dedicated to the 1970s Godzilla films and collectibles. That should be going down August 17th. And I'm also getting the upcoming 30cm Baragon 1966 figure, as well as the Sakai 95. Lots of stuff is coming here on the channel. You will not be disappointed. But in the meantime, get this figure. Get this figure of the 1964 25cm X+ of Godzilla 1964B. You will not be disappointed. Alright? So I thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And I will see y'all again on this figure move review. Alright? Y'all take it easy.